Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And welcome back, everybody. Everyone, especially when you get a little bit older and then some, experiences some kind of pain, some kind of discomfort within our body. And it could happen just because you may have sprained something or just the way it is. You start feeling that discomfort as you get a little bit older. There are some modalities to take care of that. One of them is called Rolfing, and it's a type of body work that addresses the body's fascia. We're going to talk more about that today, specifically for those who are a little more active and experiencing some challenges along the way. She's a certified Rolfer, and she's got a great company called Revelation Rolfing, and it's Hannah Karis who's back with us. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Fantastic. And I still share with people when you describe fascia, or is it fascia? Everybody has their own way of saying it. How do you say it?
Fascia.
Okay. And that connective tissue that's in our body and this is your description and it's spot on, and I've shared it with others, when you're cooking chicken and you're cutting the chicken up, and underneath the skin of the chicken is that white stuff, that tissue kind of thing going on there. And you wonder, like, what is that? That is fascia, and that's in our body as well. But sometimes that connective tissue needs some support, right?
Yes, definitely. Sometimes over time it can become dehydrated. It can become adhered. So Rolfing just goes in there and breaks up any adhesions and hydrates the fascia, allowing the fascia to be more adjustable and not just hold the body in one place, allow it to move in and out of certain positions more easily and gracefully.
So this in particular is impactful for people that are more active. Doesn't matter what age you are. You could be playing tennis, pickleball, some sports, weekend sports, once a month. You could be a musician. You're moving around a lot. How does that change the fascia, and why would that need to be supported?
Yeah, so speaking of being active with the fascia, people that tend to be more active after receiving Rolfing will have longer lasting results. A lot of people always ask me, well, how long would, this last me? And it all depends on how active of a person you are. And so the more you move, the more you're training the fascia, the neurological system within the fascia, to be adaptable and to not go back to that old pattern of holding you in a certain position that once served you.
Does it happen to everybody? Do we all have some stuff going on with our fascia?
Oh, yeah. We're all our own unique, I always like to compare it to a knot of yarn. We all got in certain different ways from all different kinds of things, over time. So, yeah, we're all unique and very different. And that's, we've talked about the Rolfing 10 series, and that's why it's such a beautiful thing to have all 10 sessions done sequentially to be able to address the body as a whole. What
happens? Let's pick a drummer. So, doesn't matter what age they are, but especially if you're getting older and you're playing, there's definitely a lot of movement. How is the fascia changing as you get older, and that repetitive movement? Let's say that drummer's, going at it, hitting the skin, so to speak. What is going on with that fascia?
So over time, since it's so repetitive and the muscles used to doing that, and the whole body is, the fascia just will the neurological system within the fascia telling the body to hold it in that spot or that position, that neurological pathway becomes very strong. And therefore, the motion of hitting the drums becomes very a strong system that the body gets to use. It gets used to it, and it becomes stronger and stronger every time you play. But sometimes that fascia doesn't let you go back into relaxing. Sometimes it kind of still holds you in that working position, I guess you could say. So going in and working on that fascia, and like a drummer, we would we wouldn't take away their skills that they've really developed over time. If anything, we're making it so that they can easily go in and out of positions. So they can easily get into the position they need to for drumming, but then they don't have to stay in that. They can actually, be able to relax, after a show.
What amazes me is, and we've mentioned this before, but we have people just checking us out from time to time that may have not heard previous episodes. It's just a lighter touch in terms of the work that you're doing, but lighter doesn't necessarily mean you have to go heavy, like a deep tissue massage, what we're used to seeing the benefits of, body work. It can be completely the opposite in terms of what you're doing.
Yeah, so it can be like lighter at times, but then other times it definitely can feel extremely deep. It's all a matter of, fascia is kind of like we work within layers, and we just go to the layer of availability, and we kind of challenge it from there. We don't want to force our way through, because that becomes more traumatizing to the body than integrative.
I want to go, no pun intended, a little deeper here in terms of you doing the work. How do you know? I guess your hands have gotten, or your fingers have gotten so accustomed to feeling the fascia, where the changes are, and what needs to get done. Am I explaining that right?
Yeah. So I was kind of talking about that with my client the other day, because, I'm working on her, and I was about to go to the other side, and I was like, oh, wait, nope, I see something else. I got to, get this first before I go to the other side. And she's like, I'm just amazed that you can see that. I'm like, yeah, I kind of look at the body like in cylinders, a left and right cylinder, and what is its relationship to the spine? How does one side look versus the other? How does one side feel versus the other? And, aim for, symmetry, but sometimes symmetry isn't always the answer. Sometimes you can have results without it. But yeah, so it's that's kind of how I go about and figure out where I need to work.
Describe, you're working on somebody and you notice that things are off. Is it like a lumpy feeling? What are you feeling?
Well, so a lot of my, I do a lot by just looking, but with feeling, things okay, one side, I can sink into the fascia more than the other, where it's staying really superficial. That's kind of what I feel sometimes. There's times I'm doing a glide, and I get to a spot where it kind of, I stop, or it gets kind of jerky. So that tells me, okay, we need to work here a little bit more, and then usually after doing a little bit of work there, I can glide through more easily.
How do you know you've done the job?
Pre and post assessments. Well, obviously looking, feeling, but then also having them do walking or movements after and before a session, just to see how it feels to them, how it looks, if I'm seeing it function without compensating in any way.
Pre and post assessment, to me, that's before and after. Same thing, right?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. I want to share with everybody how driven you are with this work, in that you left where you live, moved to another state temporarily for almost a year to get the training, and then back. What a commitment. And not a lot of people would do that. And it's kind of a sight unseen. You're like, I'm going to take the training and see where we go with that. What was the catalyst for that? What was this is the right thing to do? And, okay, family, we're going. What was the thing that really pushed off the cliff, so to speak?
It was just when it was introduced to me, it was right before my wedding. And so after the wedding, because I was like, that's really interesting, but I can't really think about that right now. I got too much going on. So after the wedding, I started just doing some research on it, and from there, it just really spiked my interest. I thought, this is it. This makes so much sense. So when I called the Dr. Ida Rolf Institute to enroll, they told me it was a requirement to have a 10 series to go through the program. So I ended up finding a Rolfer. The closest one to me was an hour and a half south. So I went and saw her every week, 10 weeks in a row, and that was like, okay, yes, you are making the right choice to do this, because I was able to get out of the shoe lift I've been wearing since I was 16 years old. And, any of the lower back pain that I used to experience prior to Rolfing is nowhere near as frequent or intense, and it does not last as long. I know, like, my fascia is just willing to adapt. It doesn't stay in that holding painful position as long. I just get up and move, and it will adapt for me. So that's really was like, okay, yes, for sure, this makes sense to leave your home that you've been for your entire life and go do this. And, yeah, it was one of the best experiences in my life.
My gosh. They say we're piloted by our intuition, our gut feelings, and many times we ignore it. Was your intuition saying, this is it, go?
Yeah, it definitely was, because I knew I was never going to get another experience like this. I was still young, just got married. My husband was willing to go with me. But, I was like, this is my time to do this, and it just felt right, and I'm so glad I did it. I'm the only one in Muskegon, Michigan that does this work, and it's really fun, and I'm really proud of it.
I just want to go back to what you just said a moment ago, the 10 series. That is the work. You had to experience Rolfing before you could do the training.
Which I think is amazing, because it's
right?
such a great way to learn the work. Like, I almost want to go through another 10 series just like to continue to evolve the process that I do it, just to keep learning and experiencing the work. Whenever I do go see my Rolfer, it's like she's been doing it for 25 years. So it's really fun to go see her and be able to learn from her too.
That being said, does it change when you regularly get sessions? Meaning, is your fascia easier to work? Does it just put you in a better spot for the next session?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. The way the 10 series is like they just lead up into the next session. I can't tell you how many times somebody has come in the room and been like, yeah, I feel really good from the work you did last time, but right here's kind of starting to hurt. I'm like, well, what do you know? That's where we're working at today, because it's just it's really supportive to each session, to each other. So it's great.
I wish I could. I haven't experienced it. I am so curious what it feels like when the session is done. What do you hear? Well, you've done it. You've had it done yourself. Describe it. What's going on?
Usually, for me personally, and from what I've heard a lot of clients say, they just feel lighter. They don't feel like, they're walking so heavily anymore. They just feel lighter. They feel elongated. Feel like they can move more freely, with less pain. Yeah, it's everybody's experience is different, but yeah, personally for me, I just feel like my range of motion's more equal on each side of my spine. I feel lighter. There was one time my arms felt like they were going to drag on the ground afterwards. They just felt like they were elongated so much. So it's fun, especially when really fun, profound things like that happen.
Well, you mentioned before, and very briefly, but I want to paint the picture. You were wearing a brace prior to your sessions. And
yeah, a shoe lift, a shoe insert, because my right femur is actually a little bit shorter than my left femur. So it's not a soft tissue imbalance like you usually kind of hear in length discrepancy. It's like the actual bone. So again, when I was talking about symmetry earlier, I can't have symmetry in my pelvis, because if I did, it'd be thrown off so much, because there is an actual bone length discrepancy. So that's why sometimes, if it doesn't look symmetrical or look necessarily how you expect it to be, if it feels good, that's what matters most.
So how did that change for you in the challenge that you had? You got rid of the lift?
Yeah. So
how? That's where I'm going with that, because I'm trying to visualize. Well,
yeah,
wait a minute.
So
right?
Yeah, so basically, I think the reason why I started to have lower back pain was when I stopped playing sports when I was a teenager. I think that little bit of muscle atrophy revealed, there's balancing your skeletal system. So with that, I just got a shoe lift to, make up for that compensation. Well, that got annoying, like having to wear specific shoes or, figure out ways to, attach a shoe lift to a sandal. So with getting the 10 series, she just was able to get my body in a place where it felt safe and happy. And I remember it was towards the last few sessions of my 10 series where I went to Port Austin for a mini vacation, and we walked around a lot, and I was wearing my shoe that had the external lift on it, and my pelvis felt so unstable. So when I came back and I saw her, I was like, I just don't know if maybe I should try going without it. Like, what do you think? I had her assess me with and without it. She's like, honestly, I feel like you can go either way. She goes, try going without it, and if you feel good, stop wearing it. And sure enough, yeah, I just stopped wearing it, and because, the last time I wore it, it really threw me off because she got my body in a place where it didn't need it anymore.
That is, I have no words. And I really mean it. That's mind blowing.
It's almost like magic sometimes, but there's a lot of science behind it.
Oh, for sure. But,
yeah.
When I initially think about Rolfing, based on everything I've learned from you, I think of it more of a movement thing, or I got a little pain here, discomfort, that. I don't think of it in terms of somebody needing a lift in one of their shoes, but it just goes to show you how it spreads out in terms of how it supports you. And I don't mean just, supports the body. I just mean supports what you need in your body and how important fascia is. Oh, yeah.
Yep, it definitely is. It's the number one, structure of support in your body. Without it, we'd just be a pile of, muscle, skin, bones.
So let's look at that. So we have our skeletal system. We have the fascia. We have the skin. I would assume that the skeleton is, keeping us, upright, if you will. Would it be fascia next and then the skin?
Well, it's really the muscles in the fascia that's holding the bones in place. I always like to use the analogy of a Jell-O mold and with fruit in it. So the fruit is the bones, and really it's the soft tissue that's holding those bones in place.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And I forgot to mention muscle.
Yep.
It's kind of important.
Yeah. So it's that's what's holding it in place. Those bones would just drop if it didn't have that all holding it there.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
wow.
Rather than the bones supporting the muscles and fascia. It's the muscles and fascia, soft tissue, that is supporting the bones.
The chicken or the egg?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of wow. Where do you go from here? Now you've had the training, you have clients, you have a practice. Is there, I always hear that people that do this type of work, not necessarily Rolfing, but things like it where you're helping other people. Sometimes you're, I want to go for training. I want to learn that. I want to learn that. Is there anything on your radar, or we're good with Rolfing for now?
Oh, I absolutely love Rolfing. I'm very happy to be here. I've only done the basic training so far, so I will go on to become an advanced Rolfer.
I didn't even know. I didn't even know that existed.
Yep.
Tell us.
I've had my practice for 3 years. So I'm working on getting into courses in visceral manipulation, Rolf movement, and craniosacral work. So once I do a certain number of continuing education courses in those areas, I will be able to go for my advanced training. And once I get my advanced training from there, I can just take continuing education courses as I feel. So Rolf movement's another thing that I'm super intrigued in, but I've recently learned about somatic practitioners, and I thought that was something really cool, and I want to learn more about that and see how that can be related to Rolf movement, because it sounded a lot the same.
Wow.
Yeah.
Give me an example of what people tell you, or one or two examples. They just got up, they're walking out the door, or they called you or text you. shortly thereafter. What are the things that people describe that they're feeling?
Again, just feeling lighter, or like their strides longer now, or that pain's not there anymore. They wake up the next day, maybe the pain's there a little bit because it's always there in the morning, but it's nowhere near as bad as what it was, and it went away much quicker. Just kind of those sorts of things. Feeling like they're standing taller, more present.
I'm going to be very honest with you. I'm always transparent. I got to say, I do a lot of podcasts with people. Some of it, or the majority of it, is people who do have their life's work is helping other people. I don't think I've ever spoken to somebody that is so proud and so driven and so sure of what they do for others than yourself.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. I really do love the work. It's been a huge, impactful part of my personal life, and it's just amazing where it's taken me professionally. Being able to have the flexibility of my schedule so I can be home with my son during the day. Like, I never even thought about that when I went into it. Like, just how right this is for me. And I'm really passionate about it, and I'll talk anybody's ear off about it.
Oh, and I welcome it. I've learned so much. I think it's so cool. And it just goes to show that there is so much out there that can help and make us feel better and support us. And we're not even aware of it. I mean, there's so much. I'm grateful that more and more people are open to things like Rolfing, but, energy healing, coaching, all of that.
It's really becoming something more, and I'm grateful to see that too, just because some of the things that people have been trying for so long just isn't working. And so somebody that's really open to like these holistic approaches that are mindful and really embracing the experience, they get a lot out of it.
I would say since I started in my journey in the last, say, 4 years, and I started looking deeper into a lot of these different modalities, I'm thirsty now for more. Like, what else is out there? What can I've got this.
I'm still learning more. Like, I just, it's amazing. There's still so much stuff that my clients are like, have you heard of this before? I'm like, actually, no, I haven't. Like, so it's really cool. There's so much I want to experience, people like that. And you're like, what is this like compared to Rolfing? I'm like, well, I think maybe this, but, I really need to go experience it before I can say it, So, it's amazing. I love this world, the Rolfing world, and what doors it has opened for me.
Amazing. Hannah, if somebody wants to connect with you, obviously it can only be done hands-on, literally, where you are. But if anybody has a question, they want to learn more about it, how do they contact you?
Yeah, so if you want to learn more about Rolfing, or if you're in the Western Michigan area and want to book a session, you can contact me at my website, revelationrolfing.com. And if you are not in the Western Michigan area and you'd like to experience Rolfing, you can go to rolf.org. It's ROLF.org. And they have a Find a Rolfer page. And you can type in like your area code and find a Rolfer near you.
Got to tell you, I have so much faith in what you do that if I was in the Michigan area where you are, before we end this call, I'd be at your door. and I would have booked a 10. I'm not even kidding. And I truly mean that. It's like, we need it. We need it, but we don't realize we need it until you start learning more and more, as I have. Thank you so much again for being here today. Wish you all the best.
Yes, you too. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Jason Derulo. I love that music connects to people all over the country. But unfortunately, so does something else. Childhood hunger. 15 million kids struggle with hunger right here in America. And yet, every year, billions of pounds of surplus food in the U.S. go to waste instead of going to the children in need. Feeding America is working to change this. The Feeding America nationwide network of food banks rescues this surplus of food to help provide meals to families in virtually every community in the United States, including yours. But they just can't do this alone. Join me in the fight against hunger in America. For more information on what you can do to get involved, visit feedingamerica.org. That's feedingamerica.org. Together we can solve hunger. Together, we're Feeding America. A message from Feeding America and the Ad Council.